Now in studio, we have Mr. Glen Grunwald, who I'm very excited to talk to. I wanted to get him on a couple of weeks ago. Thought it was finally time. I had this huge, eloquent intro planned for you.
I gave just like all what you have there.
Oh, really? All of it, eh?
Yeah.
I was gonna play the Indiana fight song to play you in.
Nice. Oh,
yeah.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, so I thought I would have played that in, but that's okay. Time is not our friend. So, first question: Cubs or White Sox fan growing up in Chicago?
Cubs all the way. I could never understand why a person would be a White Sox fan. It was beyond comprehension.
I have to say, I went to Wrigley 2 summers ago, and I don't even know where whatever they're calling it, AT&T Cellular or what should be Comiskey permanently,
right.
where it is. So
right.
It was Chicago was a beautiful city to go and visit, though. Growing up in and around Chicago, what led you towards being an executive? I know you were a player, obviously, for a long time, but what kind of led you towards being athletic director or wanting to get into the executive side of the sports business?
Well, as my career went along, I remembered the great experience I had as a student athlete at Indiana University, and I've always been interested in that and trying to help other institutions and other student athletes along in their careers and their experiences. So I thought, someday when the opportunity presents itself, I would seize the opportunity, and the timing was right this time around at McMaster, and boy, am I ever excited to be here and very happy I made that decision.
No, yeah, we're very excited to have you as well. Now, I don't want to say necessarily one of the problems, but something Scott and I always talk about in and around the OUA right now is the health of competition in a variety of sports, specifically OUA football. There's a lot of teams that are struggling, and there was rumors this past week that Waterloo might be looking at dropping out. Then their athletic director issued a statement saying, we love this program, we never want to go away, and we want to be a part of the OUA and the OUA football conversation for a long time to come. What do you see as a challenge to competition in OUA football? And I know that you're new to OUA and CIS sport, but as a whole, there are some kind of outstanding issues of competition, and we just talked about Laval being so dominant in Canadian football. What do you see as a challenge moving forward to get people on a level playing field?
Well, that's a good question, and obviously resources are one of the things that's important. At the same time, it's also about the people. And, I think the great thing about MAC is that it has great people here, and that's why we've been successful. We have great football coach, great football coaching staff, great administration. I just received a email from a OUA official that's been refereeing for 21 years, and he just raved about our game presentation, how we treat the officials, how we honored one of their retiring officials before the game. So that's part of it. But I think the OUA and to some extent the CIS has to look at terms of, do they want to try and level the playing field? And if so, how do you go about doing that in terms of resources?
I'll also say if we have an athletic director such as yourself who's able to respond to my email in 2 hours, I think all areas of the OUA will be better off. Because that blew me away when I sent you an email saying, hey, I popped my head in last week and I'd love to speak with you when possible. I had a reply in an hour and a half. And I was like, how do you answer an email in an hour and a half as an athletic director that's trying to find your way through your first month at a school?
Well, again, I'm just trying to meet people and understand what's going on here, and I'm still catching my breath from running through the halls, chasing the starting quarterback for our football teams as we try and get to the studio. So now that I've caught my breath, again, it's for me. We do have a good staff. Mark Alfano, Debbie Marinoff-Shoup, they all run the athletics and recreation very well. Right. So my point is now we have a good program. We have winning programs. We have good coaches. How do we maintain that and then continue to improve? I think one of the things that I'm excited about in terms of McMaster is the strength conditioning and the athletic treatment for players. Like we have a great kinesiology school. We already use a lot of those students in terms of the treatment of our players. Yep. We should be the leaders when it comes to player care and player development in the OUA and the CIS because of our facilities, our kinesiology department, our staff, and our coaches. So, I think we're good right now, and Steve Lidstrom and his staff do a very good job with you guys, and we need to continue to build on that and make sure that we maintain, that as one of our key priorities in terms of, because that'll extend across all sports, not just, the varsity sports. Yeah. Yep. It also extends into recreation, for the student that uses the D-back for staying in shape and just general wellness.
Mm-hmm. I can attest as well as a varsity athlete that you're talking about the therapists and the student trainers that we have here, top notch.
Yeah.
They've always been
I hear that
excellent.
every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
There's never a complaint about a student therapist on a team. When we have a team of, 75 to 80 to 90 guys during training camp, and they're able to look after each one of us with the same care, that's pretty amazing. Looking back at that when I'm done here in not too long, unfortunately, that's going to be definitely one of those things that I'm very, very thankful for. Because I haven't heard horror stories from other schools, but I have heard, I went in and I tried to get my leg worked on because we had a game in 2 or 3 days and I wasn't able to get in time. It's those little things like you're talking about,
right.
Wellness centers and working out at the Pulse and things like that do make a very, very large difference. I spoke with Jeff Giles as he was about to leave the athletic director job here. He spent a lot of his time focusing on fundraising. That's kind of a main issue, talking about resources being important as well as people to the success of a program. He spoke a lot about haves and have-nots in and around the OUA. How much of a focus is alumni donation and fundraising for you, and what kind of importance does it have, do you think, on this job?
Well, it's critical. It's the key part of this job, I think, and different in my previous job as a professional sports executive, where I'm just a cost center. I'm just spending the money. But here, I think what we have is our coaches serve as sort of not only the coach, but also the general manager. And to a large degree, a lot of the fundraising has been downloaded upon our coaching staff. So not only are they responsible for recruiting athletes, coaching them, and making sure everything's going all right, they have a large responsibility in terms of fundraising. I don't know if that can really change, but I think my focus and my job is primarily going to be in terms of making sure that our athletes, our students, and not just student athletes, but the rest of our student body, in terms of the use of the recreational facilities we have here,
right,
has the resources that they need to make sure that they have a great experience when they're at McMaster University.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge difference. You talked about player development before, but just you have 5 years, and no one's, very rarely, it does happen, especially men's basketball, but do people leave early? They're usually here at McMaster. There's not too many transfers. So they're here for 5 years. So that player development, that building a relationship with the student in his first year through to his fifth, that is what makes a program successful and gives you long-term sustained success, because people come in and they hear from a fourth or fifth year how they've gotten better or stronger, or they've received excellent care. I think, but again, then all of that just kind of comes down to finances.
Yeah. And
some schools just they can't afford to do that. Or they've spread themselves too thin.
Well, it's not just – finances are very important, but it's also the culture.
Yeah.
And I've been impressed with the culture of McMaster, not only in the athletics and recreation department, but throughout the university, the sort of spirit and community that we have here. And I think that's what athletics can really help build on that, in terms of making everyone feel like they're part of McMaster in one way or another. And that's one thing that everyone can get around, whether it's a sports team or something along that.
The Vanier in 2011, I know I talked about many different people about this, but that Vanier win. Before that, I think the culture around McMaster was always highly thought of school, very good programs as far as with your health sciences, your life sciences. But no one, there wasn't really a reputation. Everyone hates Western and
you
Queens.
couldn't write your name on something and say Mac is this. It didn't have a brand identity. And
no.
I think that's what we've changed in the last 5 years.
They've gotten, I think, McMaster's the McMaster way. They're not in headlines for negative things. They're winning constantly. They're always in conversations, and I think that's the culture now. It's a culture towards excellence. They put that on the Nike font. They put that on a lot of stuff, and that's what it is. And that's what was needed, I think, to be kind of the stepsister to the OUA that just wins. And if that's what they're going for, I think they've achieved it.
Should we adopt the Oakland Raiders? Just win, baby. Should we get some Al Davis in
No,
here? Can you make that the new slogan of the athletic program?
Don't adopt anything from the Raiders.
Well, judging by yesterday's performance in London, I think I'd have to agree. But Glen Grunwald joining us here on CFNU 93.3 Marauder Radio. A lot of people talked in the search for the new athletic director about the possible connections that person could bring in and try and help out grow this university's athletic department and the university's perception in general. I guess what I'm asking is, how soon until we have the Globetrotters playing in Burridge Gymnasium through you? You have any fun hookups for us?
If that's what people want, we'll get the Globetrotters here. They're an entertaining bunch. I haven't seen them in a number of years, but they are a lot of fun. And no, I think to Scott's point is that, the McMaster brand and what we stand for, I think is good. We have real students who are also athletes. and we try and play by the rules. And I think that's important that we do that, and we stay out of the negative stuff. Obviously, there's always going to be something that happens when you're dealing with a lot of young people, and people make a mistake now and again. But I think, that we have very high expectations for our student athletes and our coaches, and I think from what I've seen, they've pretty much held up to those standards.
Yeah.
You inherited a lot as an athletic director here. Through your eyes, first month in, give me your favorite thing that you've inherited and something you'd most like to see changed.
Well, the favorite thing I've inherited is the people. I haven't met one person that I would say, boy,
until this
we'll have
interview.
to take a look at that one, and then we'd have this interview. But no, that to me is the favorite thing, and to enjoy the people you're working with, and to have mutual respect and appreciation for what they're doing, I think is very important, and it's an important part of the culture here. The other thing is, we're on the negative side, our resources. We need to continue to invest in these programs, not only in athletics, but also recreation. There's some issues there in terms of the overload of the system there. So we're going to have to look at that too, just so that, the student that's not a varsity athlete has the ability to get the outside activities that they want without having to go on a waiting list or things of that nature.
Absolutely. I talked with Scott earlier in the show about the lack of hockey here. I know, again, like I'm saying, a lot of these questions are difficult just because you are so new to this job, but hockey has been away from MAC for a while now. What is your general understanding of the hockey situation at McMaster? Is it worth bringing back the cost, the benefits, all of that?
Well, it'd be preliminarily. It's too preliminary for me to say anything about that. I know there's some desire by some people to bring back a hockey team.
Strong, but vocal minority, yes.
Yeah. I think, right now we have to focus on what we have and make sure that they continue to have the resources. Those programs need to be successful. And then we can always look at hockey, but it's not on the front burner for me right now.
Yep. The USC, University of Southern California athletic director Pat Hayden got in some hot water earlier this year when he was abusive an official down on the sideline. How soon until you're reprimanded by the OUA for being on the sidelines and ripping into referees?
Well, no, I don't think
Wrong
I'm
answer.
To referees. I think the referees, I think they're sort of the unheralded people that are involved in OUA and CIS sports. They can never make anyone happy. But, one of our great boosters here at McMaster is Ron Foxcroft, who's a famous referee. And when I first met him, he was the only referee that my coach in college, Bobby Knight, liked. And I don't know why that was. I'm not sure that's good or bad for Ron, but he is Bobby Knight's favorite all-time referee.
What's your favorite Bobby Knight story that you can tell on air?
Nice qualifier. Good qualifier there.
My favorite stories cannot be told on air.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. Those are the best ones. There's so much corporate sponsorship going on in and around sports. I want to shift gears a bit away from MAC and just to sports in general. There's a lot of corporate sponsorship going on. There's a lot of ads being discussed going on to uniforms soon. We have had an RBC patch on our jersey in the past. Maple Leaf Square is being renamed Ford Square for the car company. Where do you see corporate sponsorship in sports going in the next 5 to 10 years? Not necessarily just at McMaster, but in general.
Well, marketing to sponsors is one of the key parts of my job. So again, we want to make sure that we continue to keep McMaster as a brand that corporate partners want to be affiliated with. And then we have to show value for the advertising that we have with them. So that's going to be a critical part of what we do going forward. And we've had some success in the past with respect to that. We need to continue to build upon that. So overall, the marketing dollars, particularly when you look at live television, I found it interesting that one of my former coworkers, Chris Overholt, who is now the head of the Canadian Olympic Committee, wrote an article about how the CRTC needs to continue to encourage broadcasters to cover amateur events throughout Canada, whether it's the CIS or other sort of amateur events, because that's such a key component. And the one thing about broadcast now and sporting events is that's the one thing that people can't DVR and can't postpone to later or watch on another device. So I think we need to, as an OUA or a CIS, we need to continue to find ways to get our product on television, and that'll only make ourselves more valuable to marketers in and around Canada.
Who is your favorite athlete in professional sports right now?
My favorite athlete is, well, it's personal for me, but it's Pablo Prigioni, who's a point guard for the.
Pablo,
you really went on the map for that one.
Yeah, no, I just love Pablo as a person, and he's such a wonderful guy. And he came over so late in his career to be in the NBA, and he's done pretty well. So I'm happy for him, and I just know him as a person, and that's why he's my favorite. But before that, it was Alvin Williams, who was a point guard for the for the Raptors, and I really, again, it's more of the person than it is he's a great player, but he was a very good player, but more of him as a person.
What's the hardest job you've ever had?
The hardest job I ever had was probably my first year when Isaiah left the Raptors and I became the general manager. I think we finished 16-66, and nothing went right there. And so it was a matter of changing the personnel a little bit and trying to change the culture there. And we made some progress. General
manager is such a divisive job. You can never be right. The fans are always going to be angry about something, like you're saying, that first season without Isaiah there in Toronto. Why do you think that general manager is such a hot spot for anger and you're never doing the right thing? The Rudy Gay trade is an example I think of. When that happened, people said, oh my God, we're going to go through we're going to tank, we're going to try and get Wiggins in the draft and whatnot. And then the trade makes the team much, much better, as you know. It's such a difficult position in sports for people to understand your motives and that you are always trying to do something correct.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a second guessing. I think that's fair. That's part of it. I think what's changed over the last 10 or 15 years is that there's been more of a focus by fans, but also the media in terms of the general manager's role. I mean, almost, there's more coverage for the NFL draft than there is for the NFL season. It's hard to believe. And that's sort of a general manager's job. So that part of the sports world, the sort of the general manager's functioning of trades and acquiring players and hiring and firing coaches, that's become even more emphasized as media's gotten more and more into looking into those decisions. People are much more knowledgeable about collective bargaining agreements now and rules under which franchises have to operate. So it's sort of an evolution as fans get deeper and deeper into sports. It's as much as what happens off the field as it is on the field sometimes, it seems to me.
Yeah. And I think we'll always remember the architect of the late Miami Heat team and Pat Riley, but I don't know who built the teams out in the 90s. I don't know who built those awesome Jazz teams. I know Jerry Krause may have played a major role in the Chicago Bulls, but that was only because he was kind of a negative influence and very cheap. I only know him for a negative reason. So I think that's even there's just more focus on those personalities that are doing it. Pat Riley's such a big name. Masai Ujiri's such a big name. So there's definitely an emphasis on the people that are doing it themselves and trying to understand their tendencies, rather than, just looking at the moves and the trades and the signings, the drafting and all that stuff.
How many times have you watched the movie Draft Day in the last 3 months?
I've tried to watch it, but my wife always wants to select another one, and she said it's got terrible reviews. Is it that bad? I don't know.
Have you seen it?
I liked it, but I'm an NFL nerd, so you could put out the worst movie. It's got Costner in it, and it's about NFL drafting, so I'm there.
Yeah, it might be a little bit longer, but I'll get to see it someday. So you give it how many stars?
I'm going to give it, I'm not a fair judge, but I'll say at least 4.
4 out of 4?
No, 4 out of 5. I go on a 5-star scale. That's my general rule. How frustrating was working with Knicks owner James Dolan?
Well, we had a good run there, and I appreciate the opportunity that Jim gave me to run the team for a little bit there, and we had, pretty good success. And, it's unfortunate Jim decided to make a change there. I don't quite understand it, but, it's his team, so he gets to do what he wants.
And it led you to this radio studio.
And it's beautiful, yes.
Basement of our student
center. Your favorite memory as the Raptors GM?
My favorite memory was going into the locker room after we beat the Knicks in the deciding game of the playoffs that year, where we went into Madison Square Garden. And we won the fifth and deciding game, and just to go in the locker room and see how happy those players were, particularly Charles Oakley, who had a big grudge against the Knicks for trading him to the Raptors in the first place. And it was just a great celebration in that locker room after the game.
If Vince hits that shot in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final in Philadelphia, how different do you think the narrative is on his days in Toronto?
Yeah, that was one of the issues, him going to his graduation that morning of that game. I don't think it really affected him too much, but yeah, it would have changed it a fair bit, I think, because that was went from another negative that they could cite about his behavior. Again, Vince is a great guy, really nice man, and but again, he probably made some mistakes and things that he did off the court more than anything. Nothing serious really, but cumulatively it sort of got people a little fed up with him, I think, and resulted him getting sort of run out of town.
Yeah, the conversation around that going to his graduation is extended for so long.
Yeah.
And people are still not really angry, but it's just one of those things that people love to bring up.
Right.
Anytime you mention that conversation.
Right.
Is Masai Ujiri as godly as everyone in Toronto is making him out to be? Is he overrated? Do you think he's doing the job that everyone says he is? Or what's your opinion on kind of his work in Toronto and the shaping of this modern Raptors team?
No, I think Masai's very good. I think he's no god, but he's also very good, and he's I think they're in great hands with Masai, and I think he'll continue to build the team. I think he's he took some time when he first came in there to see what's going on, and made some decisions not to trade someone or to trade somebody, and now we're where we're at. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to develop this year.
I would argue, and Scott, you can chime in on this too, that this year's Raptors team was probably the most excited, if not the most, that market has been for basketball since your time as the Raptors general manager. And I think that kind of speaks to the groundwork that you laid when Vince came in and those young Canadian players started to come up through the system, that the interest in Canada has expanded and expanded. And I think it definitely, one plays off of the other. Do you think that that's part and parcel to the excitement that was seen in Toronto in the spring?
I think Canadian basketball fans have been underrated for a long time. When the Raptors first started out with John Bitove leading the way, we led the league in attendance in terms of, because part of the reason was we played at Skydome,
and you beat
Rogers
the Bulls.
Center.
You beat the Bulls at home, so there you go.
But no, they've always been good, and they're very knowledgeable, and they've had a rough go for the last few years, but sort of that surprisingly good season, people responded, and I think the rest of the NBA saw it when they saw the crowds in Maple Leaf, now Ford Square, and I thought it was really named after Mayor Rob Ford. I honestly thought that. So
I think it's actually I think it's named after Doug.
Yeah. Sure I wonder why would they name it after Rob Ford? But there, that explains it a little bit better. No, seriously, the fans, basketball fans in Canada have been around for a long time. There's been people working at grassroots level basketball and CIS level basketball and national team level basketball for a long time that have made great contributions to the sport. So it's a good basketball culture here. Obviously when you compare it to hockey, it doesn't quite compare to that, but that doesn't mean it's not strong.
Yeah, give it time. And the way hockey is right now, and that it costs so much, and basketball is pretty much free. Get some shoes, find a black zone. Yeah, and I actually basketball is a little bit. It's going to get pricier to get into the games, but
that flex package with the Raptors this year, everybody's complained about now, where the dynamic pricing, where when the Heat come to town or when the Cavs come to town, the prices go up. That might be a bit of a hit. But regardless, you're talking about fans in Toronto being kind of overshadowed by hockey. But I think you're going to see a lot of McMaster support and fans come out in the coming years, thanks to your contributions already to the athletic program and getting your feet wet. And thank you for joining us here on Marauder Radio. We really appreciate it. We look forward to having you back.
Great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. That was Glen Grunwald. Scott, any last words?
No, I don't got too much. I know Max playing Mohawk this weekend, or Wednesday at Mohawk, starting off the basketball season.
Preseason?
Yeah.
You can catch that on Cable 14 likely?
I don't know.
It was there last year.
I'm not sure. We'll see.
That's okay. Looking forward to men's basketball season, as I know Mr. Grunwald is. We're going to get out of here right now. It is time for Sertal Radio with Narinder. First, we're going to play you out with Suddenly by the Sheepdogs. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Quiet as can be. Self-imposed solitude isn't half as bad as it seems. But Lord, I'll sit tonight and I dream of somebody. Who in the world could it be? Suddenly, I'm nowhere that I want to be. Suddenly, you're the only thing I see. Suddenly, I'm needing you right next to me. Young didactic thinkers university drinkers, living while I slow away. In my studio I sit here and tinker. I can't remember when I saw something through till its end. When in the world could that be? And suddenly I'm nowhere that I want to be. Suddenly you're the only thing I see. Suddenly I'm needing you right next to me.